The 30s are among the most important stages of Lithuanian architecture and fine arts history, marked by a strong tendency to modernize. The young artists who received education in the Kaunas Art School and gained experience in higher art schools in Western Europe got involved in artistic life. Additionally, the government, after taking a break from difficult political and economic activities, paid more attention to culture. The festive 500th anniversary of the death of Grand Duke Vytautas the Great, commemorated in 1930, the 550th anniversary of the christening of Lithuania in 1937, and the celebration of the first decade of independence in 1938 were the most important proof of statehood, the national consciousness and the vitality of culture. The international exhibitions, held in Paris in 1937 and in New York in 1939, were especially important to the state's image, uniqueness of national culture and prestige. Various gatherings and famous declarations of goals and ideas marked the artistic life of the 30s. Short-term groups were established and the gap between the older and the younger generations became wider. 1930 saw the establishment of the Association of Independent Artists, which consisted of former students of the art school Adolfas Valeška, Leonardas Kazokas, Viktoras Vizgirda, Antanas Samuolis, Rimtas Kalpokas and other artists. In their program they raised the questions of artistic revival and national uniqueness. In 1932, the Ars group, which was made up of artists who studied in Paris and who had similar artistic views, Antanas Gudaitis, Juozas Mikėnas, Vytautas Kazimieras Jonynas, Telesforas Kulakauskas and Jonas Steponavičius, announced their radical views. The older artists, Adomas Galdikas and Mstislav Dobužinsky, also joined the group, as did Antanas Samuolis and Viktoras Vizgirda from the Association of Independent Artists. The goal of the members of the Ars group was to direct art towards modernization. They criticized old artistic forms, or as they call them, worn-out art forms, and proclaimed artistic freedom and national uniqueness. The older painters, who could not distance themselves from the aesthetics of positivism and the empirical exploration of the objective reality, also defended their positions. The Lithuanian Artists' Association, established in 1935, tried to gather together both older and younger artists. Despite different contradictions, the development of architecture and art during this period was remarkably intensive. The variety of work and artistic quality were determined by many factors. The number of artists increased, their views broadened, and a great number of exhibitions were held. Lithuanian architecture, which rapidly became more modern in the 30s, moved closer to the standards of world architecture. The rationalist and functionalist trends were developed. Changed building plans, monolithic volumes, constructive forms, flat wall surfaces, continuous rows of windows, and most importantly, utility attest to rational thinking. Traditional decoration on exteriors of buildings, the system of classical orders, and other elements of formal decoration were no longer used. Most buildings of the rationalist trend are in Kaunas. From 1932 to 1934, Pažangos Rūmai, the Chamber of Progress, designed by Feliksas Vizbaras, was built. From 1934 to 1935, following Karolis Reisnas' design, the Bank of Architecture was built. And in 1935 the Cultural Museum of Vytautas the Great, designed by Vladimiras Dubeneckis, together with Kazys Kriščiukaitis and Karolis Reisnas, was built. From 1938 to 1940, the Credit Union Chambers, designed by Arnoldas Funkas, Adolfas Lukošaitis and Bronius Elsbergas, was constructed. The famous architect Vytautas Landsbergis Žemkalnis widely applied the principles of functionalism, which emphasize a clear form, harmonious rhythm of building parts, and the interplay of light and shadows. His functional attitude was embodied in the Pieno Centro Rūmai, the dairy center facilities, the research laboratory on Radvilėnai Road, and the chambers of commerce, industry and crafts that he designed. The strong movement towards modernism also marked the development of painting. In the work of young artists, new themes began to dominate, and the role of artistic expression increased. During the post-war period in Europe, after the radical ideas of modernism became less popular, the movement of new traditionalism started, and people got interested in tried and tested values of art and national culture from the past. Modernist experiments were replaced by harmonious artistic images. In Lithuania, neoclassicism was developed the most. Additionally, the artists creatively referred to the traditions of folk art, especially sculpture, and used the principles of post-cubism. The Art Deco trend, recognizable by a type of decorative stylistics, also developed. The new traditionalist ideas were most popular among the Ars group. Antanas Gudaitis' monumental pieces of art from the Paris period reflect the aesthetics of neoclassicism. Works of art painted in Kaunas express an artistic view closer to the Expressionists. While concentrating on the plastic structure of pieces of art, members of the Ars group looked for influential forms and original interpretation of motifs, and highlighted the expression of color, facture and brushstrokes. This is also characteristic of the work of Antanas Samuolis, who matured in the Lithuanian cultural environment. Simplified though very emotional language in plastic art expressed the individuality of his artistic thinking. The expressive rhythmic structures of landscapes by Vytautas Vizgirda added to the attempts of the members of the Ars group. The creative attempts of Stasys Ušinskas, which were based on the principles of Art Deco and Neoclassicism, were also very important to the development of Lithuanian art. The work of Vladas Eidukevičius was based on the discoveries of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism. Adolfas Valeška and Leonas Kazokas created significant still life paintings and landscapes with an individual touch, and Marija Račkauskaitė Cvirkienė painted purely impressionistic landscapes. Lessons from Paris and the creative interpretation of folk art traditions gave new features to the art of young artists, which matched both the aspects of general modernization in Western Europe and local experience. Similar tendencies occurred in sculpture as well. Almost all artists of the new generation, after finishing studies at the art school, studied in Paris as well. This generation in particular, following the criteria of modernism, artistic traditions and eternal humanist values, formed a strong basis for the Lithuanian sculpture school. Their work was based on the neoclassical and Art Deco styles. After the jolt of the First World War, neoclassicism prospered all over Europe. Monumental generalized forms, a peaceful movement of rhythm and attention to the traditional object of art, the human figure, is characteristic of the sculptures of this trend. Juozas Mikėnas' work reflects these principles the most. Decorativeness, ornamental stylization, a precise silhouette of an individual line, and a polished synthetic unity of forms is characteristic of the Art Deco style. Robertas Antinis, Vytautas Kašuba, Bronius Pundzius, Viktoras Palys, Bernardas Bučas, Alfonsas Janulis, Elena Kadzelevičiūtė, and other sculptors applied the principles of neoclassicism and Art Deco in their work. Matas Menčinskas, who had an especially distinctive touch and created wooden sculptures of symbolic content, stood out in the context of Lithuanian sculpture. With the coming of young artists, a turning point occurred in graphic arts as well. From the viewpoint of content, expression of plastic art, technique and purpose, a rich panorama of graphic arts formed. The specifics became clearer and a national style crystallized. Etch printing and book illustrations, created using the wood and linoleum carving technique, dominated. A large group of talented artists, Paulius Augis Augustinavičius, Mečislovas Bulaka, Vytautas Kazimieras Jonynas, Marcija Katiliūtė, Antanas Kučas, Telesforas Kulakauskas, Viktoras Petravičius, Jonas Steponavičius, Domicelė Tarabildienė, and many other artists created such works of art. The young artists, without losing the basis of realistic expression, successfully merged the principles of modernism and classical and folk art in their work. Portraits and landscapes dominated in etched painting, and there were many works created on the theme of rural and urban life. The book formatting culture developed especially quickly, which was also determined by the improved printing quality and the 17th Book Lovers Association, which was established in 1931. Books formatted and illustrated by Viktoras Petravičius, Paulius Augis Augustinavičius, Mečislovas Bulaka, Vytautas Kazimieras Jonynas, and Antanas Kučas received critical acclaim and were given medals and awards in international exhibitions. In the 30s, the artistic expression of stagecraft broadened quite significantly. Retrospective principles, depiction of everyday life and precise recreation of the period portrayed were no longer used in the best works. After young artists came to the theatre arts, specific problems began to be solved. The work of Stasys Ušinskas and Liudas Truikis illustrate the new trend. The form of the musicals of Liudas Truikis, in which the artistic expression of decorations is directly related with the musical structure of the work, and in which the synthesis of art and music dominate, is especially innovative. Stasys Ušinskas' theatre arts, based on a constructive attitude towards the space of the stage, provided a new impetus for the development of stagecraft. Decorative arts and crafts did not gain momentum very rapidly. The fact that the government paid a lot of attention to the cultivation of crafts is considered the most pronounced feature of this period of development. Professional painters created designs for craft workshops. Artists of other areas as well, such as Petras Kalpokas, Gerardas Bagdonavičius and Jonas Prapulenis, designed examples of furniture in a Lithuanian style. The latter also owned a furniture workshop and studio. Only the artist Tadas Lomsergis worked with leather. Folk weavers also dominated in textiles. Antanas and Anastasia Tamošaitis organized private weaving courses, because there was no weaving studio in the art school. In 1931, a ceramic studio was established, which, starting from 1934, was managed by Ludvikas Strolis. His students, who created dishes of different styles for daily use and decorative dishes as well as ceramic sculptures, had already participated in the exhibitions of the 30s.